Hi everybody, my name is Tracy Dockery and I've been asked to do a little talk for you on ethical fashion. I am the creator and editor of the Ethical Rebel zine, which you can probably find in your college library. The topic I want to talk about today is about the plastic in our clothes and the harmful impact our clothes have on climate change and the environment and on our health. 80% of our clothes contain plastic. The most common plastic fabric is spandex or lycra or elastane. They're all the same thing. Usually found in jeans or leggings. That's the fabric that gives your jeans that extra stretch. The plastic fabric with the biggest production line is polyester, which you can find in t-shirts, jackets, and lots of other things, often blended with other fabrics like cotton. Single-use face masks are obviously plastic. Neoprene face masks, that's a plastic fabric. Our clothes can be deadly to the environment. The fashion industry is the second largest polluter on the planet. 1 in 4 people do not have access to clean drinking water because of the dyes used for clothing that have contaminated waterways and drinking water. Chemicals used in clothing account for 10% of air pollution. It's estimated that 1 million people are killed by air pollution every year. The fabrics used in our clothes can also be deadly to us. There are a lot of chemicals used in creating plastic fabrics, which can be carcinogenic, causing cancer. Plasticizers that are added to some plastic fabrics can cause lung damage, kidney damage, liver damage. Acrylic is particularly deadly. I'll talk about that in a minute. PVC and polyurethane are both considered to be carcinogenic, and some fabrics release dioxins which cause infertility. The fabrics used to create our clothes can also be deadly to our future. Fashion's contribution to global carbon footprint was 10% in 2019 and is growing massively and is expected to be 25% by 2050. The outfit you're wearing now is likely to produce the same amount of CO2 during its lifetime as a trip from London to Paris. As the amount of CO2 increases in the environment, the temperature of the atmosphere increases, and it only needs to increase by 0.4 degrees Celsius for ice caps to melt and sea levels to rise. And it's predicted that it will rise by 70 metres, and a lot of the land that we currently use will be underwater. The biggest contributor to climate change is the increase in plastic in our clothing, and the plastic fabrics that are produced more than any others are PVC, nylon, also known as polyamide, and polyester. Acetate is made from wood cellulose or cotton lint and treated with chemicals. It's a man-made fabric. It doesn't use petroleum, but it's considered a plastic because it's man-made. It's used for shiny fabrics, sunglasses, trainers, and nappies. Acetate contains toxic chemicals that are very harmful to the body. Sulfuric acid, methanol, even small amounts of methanol can be lethal. Carbon monoxide, high levels of which are fatal, and sometimes contains phthalates, which damage the liver, kidneys, and the ability to have children. 50 to 60% of acetate wood is taken from ancient and endangered forests. The production of acetate is very water intensive. It takes 170 gallons per pound of acetate, which obviously contributes to the scarcity of drinking water that we have in the world. The byproduct of acetate production means that the waste, if not disposed of properly, can change the pH levels of local waterways, which is toxic to marine life. Acetate itself is a very fragile fabric and sheds the most microfibres when washed. Microfibres are often mistaken for food by sea life, and toxic chemicals in acetate accumulate, meaning they become more toxic as they move up the food chain and are eventually consumed by us. Another plastic fabric is acrylic, which is a plastic made from petroleum or coal-based chemicals. Acrylic is used for synthetic wool, fleeces, trainers, socks, fake fur, tracksuits. It emits more greenhouse gases per kilogram of fabric than any other. Acrylonitrile is a carcinogenic and a mutagen. It targets the central nervous system. Our bodies metabolize it into cyanide when we consume it. It enters our bodies through skin absorption from wearing acrylic clothing. Every time your skin comes into contact with acrylic fibres, your chances of developing cancer increase. Acrylonitrile is harmful to wildlife, aquatic organisms, and people. It's a volatile organic compound, or VOC, which means it evaporates easily, creating ground-level ozone, which poisons plants and crops. Acrylic is not biodegradable. Instead, it accumulates, which means it attracts toxins and chemicals and increases in size, and it takes hundreds of years before it slowly starts to break down. It is practically impossible to recycle acrylic fabric, and disposal is potentially hazardous. Research has found that acrylic sheds 728,789 plastic microfibers in every wash. Second is polyester, and polycotton is in third place. Other plastic fabrics that we haven't mentioned so far are Gore-Tex, rayon, or otherwise known as viscose. And in this chart, you can see the impact that each of these plastic fabrics have on the environment, on us, and on the climate. The fossil fuel-based plastics tend to have a very high carbon footprint. Nylon, polyester, and PVC are particularly high. All of them have hazards for workers. Most of them are hazardous for the wearer. Acrylic is a real baddie. Neoprene, potentially very bad. Polyester can be a carcinogenic depending on the treatments used to create it, and PVC vinyl is another carcinogenic fabric which is harmful to the wearer. The waste for most of the fabrics is hazardous to local ecosystems. Most of them shed microfibers. They are often water intensive. Most of them do not biodegrade, meaning they hang around in the environment for upwards of 10 years. Some of them 200 to 500 years. Most of them are recyclable, but acrylic and spandex are not. How can we tell whether our clothes are made with plastic fabrics or hazardous chemicals? The easiest option is to check your label. How do we avoid buying these hazardous fabrics? There are some certificates you can look for that will guarantee that the chemicals used are not hazardous, so Ecotex is a good label to look for. Look for climate neutral labels. If you really have to have a polyester, make sure it's recycled rather than virgin polyester. Recycled polyester is less harmful. It doesn't consume as much energy. You're not having to create it from petroleum, and it's using up textile waste. It's still quite energy intensive, so it's not the best option. If you can do without polyester, all the better. But if you really have to have polyester, then go for recycled. More and more people now are looking for ethical clothing. They're becoming very concerned about the impact that our clothing has on the environment and on our health. And ethical means making decisions that benefit the common good and avoid harm to people and the planet. You can find out more and do some more research in the Ethical Rebel zine, which focuses on plastic in our clothes, pollution, water scarcity, and climate change. And it goes into a lot more detail. This isn't an easy subject. It's difficult because it means asking questions about the things you love. It's like dating. There are some people you fall in love with even though you know you shouldn't. You're going to get hurt. They look amazing. They might have lots of money, and big brands do have lots of money, and they do use it to get you to fall in love with them. You want to believe they'll treat you right. You don't want to ask the questions to find out whether they're nice people or not. If you do, you'll save yourself a lot of heartache and regret later on. But it may be too late. You may already be hooked. But again, it's like dating. One day you'll wake up and think to yourself, you know what? I've had enough of being lied to and manipulated and the way they behave, and I'm not going to buy into it anymore. I've had enough. The danger then is that you might start believing everyone's bad and not to be trusted. Like some people accuse all brands of greenwashing. They've just been really hurt by brands they've loved in the past. There are good people out there, and there are good brands. There are no perfect people out there, or perfect brands. We all make mistakes, and perfection is impossible. The important thing is that they listen, that they admit their mistakes and are willing to put things right, that they're transparent. Some may need a lot of nagging, like Nike. In the past, some of their clothes were made in sweatshops and by children. It took years of being exposed by the press, but eventually they hired someone to look into it for them and became one of the pioneers of making sure that children in sweatshops weren't used to make their clothes. The problem is they're a big company and they need people nagging them to change. Right now, they're starting to use recycled polyester, which is much better for climate change, but not for the environment. And they're still using acrylic, which is one of the worst fabrics, both for the environment and for people's health. And all these big companies have standard responses, political responses, greenwashing responses, statements they make if you ask questions. But the more people ask, the more they start to make the changes. Smaller companies are quicker to admit mistakes and to change and to genuinely want to do the right thing because it matters to them too. You are very welcome to get in touch with me to ask questions, find out more about what's in your clothes or who makes your clothes. If you want to ask any questions about how you can shop more ethically, or if there's certain clothes you're looking for that you can't find and you want them to be ethical, get in touch, because we're always looking for brands that we can share with people that meets the needs that you have. So if you need more sportswear that's ethical, get in touch and we'll put more out there and we'll let you know who they are.